figure skating, I mean, it's important that they want to figure skate, but how do we keep people active in sport going forward? Because again, we're part of that whole process. That if we can give them a pleasant experience as skating, are they going to continue to be active their whole lives? Whether it's in skating or another activity, that's very important for us. Okay. So when we talk about the athlete's health and wellness, okay, we have to talk about that positive club structure environment. All right, again, this has been a big piece right now in the media, and it's not just in figure skating, it's in a lot of sport right now that we've gone from what I would call youth sport to trying to make youth sport something more than youth sport. So we're trying to use it as a vehicle for professionalism, making money, etc., where in essence we're still dealing with children. Our sport in particular is very young. It's a young developing sport. We have the majority of our members are children. And when I say children, they're under 16. And we really have to realize that the environment we set there has to be still conducive to their safety and their experience. And that when we start to bring adult rules and structures into youth opportunities, this is where it becomes that conflicting environment that we want to get away from. A child needs to feel like they're safe in this environment and that they can be themselves at that point. And that's really, really important, that we don't structure this so that it's a one-size-fits-all environment. They have to be individuals. Everybody has a different pathway that they'd like to create for themselves. Okay. We have to look at injury prevention and detection. And coming into Sweden last year, one of the things that was really, I'm not going to say obvious to me, but it was startling, was the amount of injury that our young athletes were having. Again, I came from Canada where we have a lot of skaters, and I used a high performance, I was working in a high performance environment, and I've never seen so many overuse injuries as I did when I got here, like joint injuries, so backs, ankles, knees, etc. I mean, every sport has them, has injury, but the fact that there was so many and back injuries was the one that was really startling to me. Because I've been in this sport for a long time. I haven't heard of this many back injuries in kids. And the majority of our injury was overuse injuries. So that tells me we need to adjust how it is we're training and what it is we're training and when it is we're training it. Okay? Because every overuse injury is preventable, which is a good thing. That's nice to know that we can prevent this stuff. We just have to readjust how it is we're going about operating our business at that point. Okay. Sports science is, again, it's one of the things that we have to use in our sport. And again, I'm going to talk about strength and conditioning, nutrition, physiology, sports science, our sport psychology. Things like that are considered sports science. And we, as a collective group, in figure skating, don't use sports science to our best advantage in general. Countries are starting to get better at it, and they're starting to use it more and more often. Canada embraced it much better in between 2010 and 2018, those three Olympic sessions. They started to understand that sports science could help drive their athletes farther, and they could take better care of their athletes, and they would have less injury based on the data and the information that the sports science people can bring. One of the downsides in Sweden is we just don't have that many professionals in those fields. And when you have 71 sports trying to find the same people, all of a sudden there's not a lot to go around. And not very many clubs in Sweden actually employ people with these skills. So it's something that we have to look at. How can we make our sports science a little better? What can we add to our own programs? Who can we at least have contact information with if something goes wrong with our athletes to get them, the medical treatment they need as they go forward, and as we go that way. Now, a lot of this injury and sports science and stuff is geared towards kind of the high performance athlete. There's no question about it. And so when you're thinking, okay, in our club we don't have anybody in that realm or that field, but that doesn't mean that we can't start to invest in things like conditioning and strength and conditioning pieces within our own programs. How can we create better physical literacy, which means how can we make them more athletic so they can handle the skill set that we're asking them to do on the ice? Because we still have this idea that we can teach everything on the ice, and we can only teach bits and pieces of it on the ice. We need to teach things off the ice as well. How to be athletic, how to be coordinated, what can you do? You can learn so much off ice as opposed to just learning it all on the ice. Safer, cheaper, faster, all of those things combined. And that's where sports science will come into play as we go forward. Recovery, again, one of the big pieces that we have, and most athletes are like this. They don't follow the instructions of the doctor or the physiotherapist. They go, I feel great. Coaches go, how do you feel? I feel great. Off we go. We go 100% again, right on the ice. I came off an injury. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go 100% again. And 2 days later, we're injured again. And we're right back. We're 6 weeks behind. Instead of taking the advice of the doctors. And again, when you have an injury that's an overuse injury, you can't all of a sudden go overuse it again, because that's how you got it in the first place. So we have to be better at following the instructions. So if you have that overuse acute injury, you have to go, wow, I need to take 6 weeks to get when I'm back on the ice before I can start to train again in the way that I was. And every time you just add a little bit more every week to what you're doing. But that's the hard part. That's athletes. Athletes have a hard time with that, because we all think we're bulletproof and we can do this. Okay, but that's also very important for us. Again, we have to figure out what the coach's role is in all of this health and wellness. They're the ones that again on the ice and off the ice see them the most. They have to start to recognize at the end of the day, are they right? Is this the same kid I saw last week? What's wrong? Start asking questions. And if they don't communicate well with you as a coach, who else do they communicate with to find out what's going on? Because there's a lot of stuff going on in these kids' lives today. And when you're talking about wellness and health, it's not just injury that we have to talk about. We have to talk about the whole entire person. So their social aspects. So their health, their mental health, their physical health, their social health. Where are they at? All right, because a lot of stuff goes on with them. And again, if we're as a coach aren't recognizing these things, when we see stuff that's different or they don't seem right, and we continue to push them, then all of a sudden we have more and more issues to deal with as we go. So we just have to be really aware of these aspects of our coaches, of our athletes. The parents' role. What's the parents' role in all this? Okay, we have parents in the room. Okay, I'm a parent as well. Actually, I'm a parent of a child with a mental illness, so it's really, really challenging. And it's a hard thing to be comfortable talking about, but it's also something that, again, if I'm a parent and I know something is going on and I communicate that with the coach, they can start to work with them on this and to find out what can we do to help this child or this kid get through some of these problems that they're having. And as my daughter says to me quite regularly is, you don't know what goes on in my head. You don't know. You have no idea. And it's hard as a parent to go, well, just suck it up and get going. She goes, I want to, but I can't. And so it's things like that we have to start being really, really aware of in a sport, because everybody has things going on in their lives that we don't know about. And as a coach, I was a coach for a long time, we think we see these kids so much, And in reality, we see them a couple hours a day. And the rest of the time, the other 22 hours a day, they're somewhere else. And so in our 2 hours a day, can we impact them in a positive way? Can we work with them? Can we help them? Can we recognize things? So that's really, really important. That's what we have to start to do. Again, the complete athlete, we talked a little bit about that already. And that, at the end of the day, the athletes are the most important people in this sport. Right? Sometimes we all forget that. I forget that. You know, sometimes I go like, I think I'm the most important person in this sport. And then I go, no, I'm not. I'm not at all. It's really good for me when I go around to clubs and I sit there and watch the athletes skate and I go, that's why. That's why we're here. Not everybody's going to be a world champion. Again, people like to skate because they love to skate. That's a good thing. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the long-term athlete development plan. So it's called an LTAD. LTADs originated in Canada about 15 to 20 years ago is when this all started to come about, that, hey, we need to have a plan for every athlete that we have in our system so that we're not just looking at high performance as the end game, that there are different stages of development that we have to be aware of as we go forward, and that we have to take care of 100% of the people that are involved in sport, not just the 3% that are at the competitive or high performance stage. And it's always fun to tell people that only 3% of the population actually is in competitive sport. It seems like there's way more than that. But in reality, certainly at the high performance level, there's very, very few bodies in that because of many reasons. Skill, want, need, all that stuff is part of that. Not everybody needs to be an Olympic champion. Not everybody has the skill set to be that. Not everybody has the opportunity to be that. So those are things that we have to obviously keep in mind as we develop a plan going forward. So when we go through this, you can see that if you go to the Skate Canada model, I stole a lot of their names and what the stage names are because I believe that they make sense in how we're going through it. But the rest is, the design of it is based around what's in the best interest of the Swedish athlete now, what's in the best interest of the Canadian athlete. We have so many different things, and I say one of the big things is that I hear it all the time, we need more ice time, and I come from a country where, ice time wasn't a problem. And, this rink's not open, and, none of the rinks in Sweden are open. I could count on probably one hand how many rinks in Sweden are open over 10 months a year. I lived in a town of 12,000. We had 3 ice surfaces. 3. In the town of 12,000, 2 were open 12 months, and the third one was only open 11 months. So we had a lot of ice. So when I go, what do you mean you have trouble with ice? And we also had a school system that was slightly different. So the first time I went to a practice here in Sweden, and I walked out at 2 o'clock, they said they started at 2 o'clock, and I went, where are your teenagers? I went, they're still in school. They don't get out till 4. So where I was, most of Canada, in fact, high school, like my high school students were done at noon, and they were the ones on the ice at 1. They're the ones that needed them more time, the time that was needed, but I also wanted them to train between 11 and 5. That's what I wanted them to be doing, because that's where I'm going to get the best result from that age of kid, is between there. Then they can go home, because a teenager needs a minimum of 10 hours of sleep a night. So when they're training until 10 o'clock at night, and then they go home and they finally shut down at midnight and they're up at 6 and they start school, the math's not working. So back where I was from, they were done at 5. They could still do their homework, they could have a job or whatever, but they still had ample time to set their schedule properly. And our younger skaters, the ones that didn't need as much time, were done at 4, and they came in at 5 o'clock or whatever it was. But again, the whole program was done by 6 or 7 at night. So it was more conducive to good development. So this is one of the issues we have to work around here in this country. How do we do this? And I'm not sure I have the answer yet. I don't think I'm going to be able to change the school system. I think that might be a challenge. But what can we do to make this better? Because now you're also having everybody that's over the age of probably 14 or 15 trying to train at the exact same time, meaning from 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And that's figure skating, that's hockey, that's maybe speed skating. That could be many, many different activities trying to fight for those same 4 or 5 hours of ice time. And for what I understand, we don't win the battles very often. We lose to hockey quite regularly. Numbers, right? So, but this is really a guide. It's a guide, a pathway guide. There's no set, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this stage. But when this gets released, and it's not finished yet, we've had some issues, but this is the basis of what we're going to do. We still have to fill in some of the details, like how many competitions is recommended for this level, for each level. How much ice time is recommended? How much off ice time is recommended? What else should you be doing in these stages of development in order for you to be a better athlete? So those little details still have to be put in. And once that's put in, we'll have a nice little package for everybody to make sure that they can see and watch and look at and go, okay, this is where we're at. But again, it's not a you must, you must, you must. It's a guide, because every kid is different. And I think that's also important that we stress that there is no one way to do this. There's multiple different ways. Okay, why is there? I think I just answered that, because every athlete's an individual. That's why we have a pathway. All right. It's also one of the things that, again, when we look at our coaching system that we have some clubs that have one coach, and they're responsible for everything. And again, when we get into the stages of development, you're going to see that there are stages that we need specialists. And we get to certain stages of development, we need specialists. And if we don't have specialists, then we're really doing a disservice to the athletes in those areas. So not every club can do all the stages. Some clubs can do the early stages, some clubs can do the middle stages, some clubs can do the high performance stages. There's a few that may be able to do it all right? But there's not a lot of huge clubs in the country. And again, I would say a big club in the country is maybe 400 members would be considered a big club. And again, I come from a country where we would consider a big club to be, 2,000 to 3,000 members. That's big. And that's when you go, okay, they can actually run all the programs because they have 30 coaches or 40 coaches or whatever, all at all different levels. And they have, they own their own rink, and then they can run it all the time. And that's a difference. So when you see that, you go, wow, that's a big difference and a big gap for me. Okay. So we talk about this, the long-term athlete model, okay? Each stage kind of relates to the other. So really, if you're going through stages of this, the exit level of one stage is typically around the entry level of the other stage. So there's a nice seamless act in what we're trying to do. And again, there's no certain order. You don't have to go a high performance route. You don't have to do that. There are stages that, again, you're going to get to a spot where you're going to go, I need to make a choice in life. Do I want to be a high performance athlete? Do I want to skate because I love to skate? It doesn't mean you may train less. It might just mean that your goals are different at that point. You're not going, I want to be an elite serious skater when, you know what, I don't have the skill set for that anymore. I still want to compete. I want to do this and I want to train hard, but I know I'm better suited in this area. And that's okay. That's what we need to develop. We need to give people opportunities to be successful in their own right. And as we go forward, I think that's really, really important to understand. Okay, commitment levels change, stage to stage, entry levels. The commitment level when you walk in the door is probably once or twice a week for 20 weeks. I'm going to just learn to skate. And then when you get to that, I want to learn how to figure skate, all of a sudden we say you got to come 6 days a week and 4 hours a day. Well, that's a big jump from once or twice a week. There's a stepping stone that we have to go through to go, this is how much ice time we need now. We also need to do other things. We also need to be athletic at that stage. And then we get to here, then we can be a figure skater that does other things. Then we get to the next stage where we can be a figure skater, where we spend more time on the ice. This is where we get our overuse injury. When we start to go, oh, you really want to figure skate? You're here 6 days a week and this much time, and you're 8 or 9 years old. And we're going to train you like you're 20. Great, you know what? That kid will increase their skill set really fast. And then they won't anymore because their bodies will break down on them. So we have to take steps as we go. Okay? Again, understanding the athletes at each stage. Okay? Understanding when it's time, and this is a big one for me, time it's right for the athletes to be part of the decision-making process. And this is hard for coaches. Coaches want to be the boss. They're the boss. They say, this is what you're doing, this is when you're doing it. And anybody have a teenager in their house? Yeah, how's that go? Doesn't go very well, does it? They question everything now. And it doesn't matter, it happens on the ice too. They start to question things. So my experience is better to get them in the room and go, we're going to go over the plan. Are you committed to this plan? I want to make them accountable for what they sign up for. So they can go, yeah, I can do this. I'm good with this. My school works, I can do this. I want to be here this many times. And then we work in that fashion. But they have to be part of that. They can't be told this is what you're doing, because what if they don't want to do that anymore? All right? We as parents may go, you want to do that, but it's their sport. It's their step as they go forward. And sometimes we forget that we see, oh, they might have talent, but they might have talent in other areas too. They may want to be good in school. That's weird. That never happened to me, but some kids want to be good in school, right? So that's the stuff we have to make sure happens. Okay. Skipping steps. Okay. Skipping steps result in athletes becoming ill-prepared. All right, and this is one of our, again, as a small country, we get really, really excited when there's a young, talented kid. You're the next one. And we're going to go, you're here right now, we're going to throw you into high-end competitions, and we're going to give you all this support, and then find out that, well, that was too early. They're not prepared. They might have the physical skills, but they might not have the mental skills, and they might not have the social skills to handle that. And we see that in a lot of our athletes, especially in the stage that I call learn to win, where they're learning now to be at the international level. And some of them are forced into that, or have been forced into that too early, and they burn out. They can't be successful because they don't have all the skills required to handle that. And one of the things that we have to do as a collective group, and again, when you're talking about the school system and all that, we have to start to take our time. We have to start to build our athletes and our sport in a different fashion so that we can get them to the finish line. So again, it's okay that our athletes peak when they're late teens and early 20s. They don't have to peak when they're 14 and 15 years old. All right? We're so enamored by countries that have all these kids coming out when they're 14, 15, 16. But we also have to remember they have 1,000 times more bodies than we do, and we don't see the junk heap where the ones that didn't make it come from are. We only see the good ones. These are the ones that survived. There's a whole bunch that didn't. And we don't have the numbers to take that risk. We don't. And as a society, I don't think we'd want that. We don't want to have a society that goes, yeah, let's hurt our children to reach our goals. I don't think that would sell well. I hope not anyway. If it does, then I don't want to be here. So at the end of it all. Importance, middle one, importance of physical literacy and general athletic development. Now, this is the one where most coaches get mad at me about, because I've heard it already. Oh, you want them to be a soccer player, you want them to be a whatever. I go, no, I want them to be athletic. I want them to develop skills outside of this sport so that when they get to our high performance level, they're actually athletic enough to handle the challenges that are coming their way. If you only solely focus on one activity, and it doesn't matter if it's figure skating or if it's hockey or soccer, you are going to max out because you don't have the athletic skill set to take it farther. It happens all the time. That super talented soccer player that, can go in and out and score whenever they want, all of a sudden gets to the same age as that kid that's developed their athleticism, and now they're at the same level. One starts to advance, one starts to stay neutral. Happens all the time. That doesn't mean that if you're a freak of nature and you're really good at something that you're not going to excel down the road. Like I said, everybody's different. There are kids that just are super good at what they do. And they may be athletic already. Okay? But we have to make sure that that we start teaching some of these skills. Physical literacy, which again is running, jumping, throwing, catching, kicking, etc. Yes?
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
That was my point.
Okay. That,
Is that
yeah.
tricky words to translate to Swedish?
Yes.
Ja, distriktsmöte is läskunnighet.
Yeah. So that's really, really important that we start to look at that and that we can develop general athletic development. All right, avoid early specialization. Again, we kind of talked about skipping steps, but early specialization is no different, meaning that, again, take the time you need to develop those athletic skills. So again, yes, you might be talented in skating, or someone may go, you are really good, and you need to do this every day. But as a parent, as somebody who would be coaching that, I would want to be sure that they developed other things, that they kept a love for the sport. That again, we have this thought process too, that skating is an early specialization sport. And that's come from a philosophy like 50 years ago. It's not anymore. It's not early specializing. It's no different than any other sport. It takes time. Again, there's this thought process that it's 10,000. The number 10,000, we've all heard it, 10,000 hours, 10,000 reps, 10,000 of this is what's going to make you perfect something. The reality with physiology is if you perfect a skill before your body has grown, when you get to your new body, you automatically under pressure go to your skill set that you perfected. So now you may have perfected it when you're this big, and now you're this big, and it doesn't work anymore. You go instantly back to what it is you perfected. So we're better to teach skills, yes, teach them how to do things, teach more athletic development as we go forward, and then when their bodies are fully grown and they can actually handle the intense training that we have, then you start to perfect things, and then their full-grown body will be able to repeat it over and over and over again as we go forward. All right? You probably notice I like to talk. I've only got 30 more slides. This is, it's always funny because they always go, can you fill an hour and a half or 2 hours? Yeah. That's not a problem. All right, so here's our stages. Like I said, I stole them directly from Skate Canada, so it's interesting. So Skate Canada has a long-term athlete development model as well online that you can look at. It's really old. It was designed in 2008, and it's in a place now where they need to redo it because some of the philosophies are, again, they're 12 years old, 13 years old. Philosophies. I don't feel bad about stealing this because I was part of writing that long-term athlete model, so I feel like it's mine anyway, so I can use a little bit of it. But our stages are learn to skate, so that's entry level into the sport, and entry level meaning it's for all ice sports, so I could maybe want to be a hockey player or whatever. This is skating school for what we have. All right. They have learn to train, that's entry into figure skating. Learn to compete, that's competition entry level. You notice how the first level of getting into figure skating is not competition level. That's learn to train. It's really important that we decipher the difference between the two. Learn to compete, and that's important that it's called learn. Train to compete, that's kind of your national level athlete. Okay. Learn to win, that's entry into junior and senior international competition. Live to Win, that's your world and Olympic athletes. And then Sport for Life, that's lifelong participation. And there's again, the Sport for Life piece is probably our biggest group of athletes, besides the first two. 1 and 2 and 7 are our biggest groups by far. Okay, those are our biggest groups. We sometimes forget about number 7 a lot, and we have to make sure that we start remembering number 7 a lot more with how we take care of them. Because again, they could be, again, a teenager that's more involved in school, wanting to be a good school student, but still wants to skate and participate. We need to make sure that our programs are good for them, that we're okay with them coming twice a week, 3 times a week, or whatever it is. That we don't pigeonhole them into, you gotta be here 6 days a week or you can't participate. Or you have to go down there, or go somewhere else, or whatever. Like, we have to be really, really good with being able to adjust as we go forward. Okay. So now I'll go through what each stage is. Okay. So, learn to skate, and there's a lot of technical BS on this, but it's important. We talk about basics. This is our entry level into all ice sport, and this is sometimes where I get a little confused with how we structure our own programs. A lot of times we hire our youngest, most inexperienced people to run these programs. And this is unfortunately where we set all the basics. This is where we can teach them the most in the basic side at this level. A lot of our high performance coaches don't even work in this level anymore. And that to me is really, really unfortunate. And if it's a case of I don't have time or whatever, the high performance or your experienced coaches that you may have in your clubs, etc., should at least mentor those younger coaches in the skills that need to be required for the athletes that they teach later down the road. Because again, if they're learning something at this level that doesn't work at this level, then it's really hard to change those habits once you get going. So again, and I was in a high performance role as a coach, but my school had entry level and kind of the stages 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the stages that I worked in. Level 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes 2. We kind of move them through. But there are other clubs that could do some of that stuff as well with us. But I always went down into that Learn to Skate program. So if we ran it a couple of times a year, I was always on the ice with them because I felt like that was the most important stage, to get to know me as a coach, to understand that, you know, I want this sport to be fun. And then we try to, again, see how far can we get somebody to go without them knowing how good they could be. So again, in a fun, energetic manner, but also push as hard as we could without them going, okay, I don't like this anymore. So it was very important. Again, I was at a high performance brain. Okay, I got to get you the skills right, and I've worked on only certain things. Skate Canada has a whole list of stuff that you have to pass in order to get through your Learn to Skate program. And I would go, these are the 5 most important things. I said, I don't care if they pass the rest. This stuff they need to be good at, because that's what I need later down the road from them. I need them to know how to push properly. I need them to know where the balance is on their blade. I need them to know how to do a cross-cut properly, forwards and backwards. Those are really the important things. The rest I can teach them after. But if we don't teach them that stuff right away, then it's going to be hard. How do you push properly to get the most out of your stride? Little things like that. So again, high performance coaches need to start to again think about stuff like that. How can I impact the sport in a positive way at the entry level as well? So not just the high performance side. Okay. Oh, look, talked about that already. So we have to monitor, be knowledgeable of growth, because again, when you come into this program, you got all different shapes and sizes, ages. I learned to skate. I mean, you might get a kid coming in at 3, 4 years old. Might have a kid coming in at 10. They're different, right? Some of them can barely walk on skates, never mind stand on the ice on skates, and others you get out there and they just around they go. All right, that's a sign that one has had introduction into actual physical development and one has not had introduction into like how the body works and moves. Okay, but those are things that we can teach a little bit on the ice, but we need to start to think about off-ice components as well. Okay, this is certainly internal assessments. You don't have anybody coming in to assess. So the coaches on the ice or the people on the ice assess what you're doing out there. You don't bring in a judge or someone from outside externally to come in and say you passed, you didn't. It's not necessary. Definitely coach-driven and group-based teaching. Again, you're not going to specialize at this level. I mean, you're teaching certain skills. You might have 5 different groups on the ice or however many you have set up, and you just go, okay, you're ready for that one. You've mastered this, you can go to the next one and start to develop at that stage. Or each group moves together at some point. Emphasis on fun. I think that's really important that we emphasize fun and safety, that this is a fun, safe environment. This is our chance to make a good first impression. If they have a good time at this, they may want to move into another ice sport. If they have a miserable time at this, they probably won't see them again. And that's why we have so much turnover in our sport as well. But I mean, again, this is designed for hockey. This is designed for figure skating. This is designed for speed skating. This is designed for leisure skating. You know, a lot of people go, I got to learn how to skate. Tick, did it. I took my 10-week lessons and now I know how to skate. Done. I can move on. And now I'm going to go learn how to swim. I'm going to learn how to do that. So that's the reality of what we're doing. And I say you got to emphasize quality basic skill development. I think that's really important. Age appropriate. Okay, keep the sessions engaging. And this is one of the things that I had this very similar job in Ontario and walked into many different programs, and I've done it here as well, that some programs you go, wow, this is really good. Lots of energy. Sure, could the skills be taught a little different, of course, but there's lots of ways to teach a skill, but the energy level and the positiveness, you could see it, and you can see it in the look in the kids, and you can see it in the look in the coaches. You go, wow, that's energy. It's fun. It's hard to teach that because it takes so much energy. And then you walk into other programs and you go, wow, that was boring. And coaches move, coaches are not engaged, they just go skate over there, do that. Again, we have to realize many athletes, many kids in general are visual learners as well. And so they learn by seeing what you're doing. So if you stand still and do nothing, they have nothing to gauge whether they're doing something right or not. And a lot of times too, you see, especially inexperienced coaches for sure, that will skate like the little ones do and not like they do. They have to do it the other way around. It's like talking baby talk to somebody. They're going to think that's normal instead of talking to them in a normal voice. And then they catch up with that because they learn through doing, etc. So it's really important that as coaches we drive that we show our skill set as well. But it's really, again, it comes down to that energy level out there. Everybody has to have that energy level. I'm sure we've all seen it. You know, be entertaining, certainly inform parents on what's going on. All right, I think, again, feedback and how the kids are doing is important. Doesn't have to be every day. It can be, middle of a session. So if you get a 10-week session, here's a progress report at week 5. Here's a progress report at week 10. This is the stuff we've worked on. Here are the important things. This is what your child's done, etc. So just so that they have that in their pocket as they go forward. Okay. This is our learn to train. Okay, so this is entry level into figure skating. And again, when I look at this level, And this is also kind of a first impression as well for us. This is our sport. Now, we have to, again, show them this is a fun, exciting opportunity for them, and what can we teach them? Again, this is really focused on basics. Really, really important that this is where we start to understand that, again, the better the basics are, the better and easier the development is down the road as well. Account for individual training needs. I think that's important. Again, not everybody fits into that. You're here, you're going to skate twice a week and you're going to do this. Again, if they want to skate 3 times a week, great. If they want to skate once a week, okay, at least they're in and they want to learn how to figure skate. Okay? Again, the idea is though, again, if this is what we set up twice a week, this is what you're going to get at the end. If you come once a week, we're going to see where you're at. If they're doing other activity in sport, I think you encourage that. You have to encourage that because that's part of what we're trying to do here. Okay, you got to balance your on ice and off ice practice. This is a weakness here. It's a big weakness in our sport, and it's certainly a weakness in Sweden. The off ice component. Again, we have ice time from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We run a program and then we send them home. Where the coaches are only on the ice, there's very little off ice component that's involved, and it should be. In most levels of development, it should be 50-50. It should be 50% on ice, 50% off ice. Sounds harsh. Again, if you're there, sounds like a lot of time. But I used to set up the program as your program runs from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. It doesn't say your program ice time is 4:30 to 5:30. Because if I just broke it down that way, they go, well, I'm going to come just because I want to learn how to skate. But part of learning how to skate is those other components. How to warm up, skills that we can do. Again, we can teach you how to turn fast off ice, way easier to do off the ice. Safer, quicker, do more reps. It's much, much better, more balance, etc. off the ice. And then, of course, teaching the things like flexibility, etc. That things that this level of athlete needs, especially if they're young. Okay, again, if we miss the windows of development, which are certainly at this stage, flexibility is probably the key and most important one. If we don't train flexibility, then they lose that ability, again, down the road to be as flexible as they could have been. You can always get flexible, but you're never going to be as flexible as you could have been if you miss that window of opportunity. Okay. Start to monitor and be knowledgeable about what growth and development are like and maturation. Again, because it's important to know when do you start strength training, when do you start endurance training, when do you start doing anaerobic and aerobic training, etc. And it could be at this stage. Again, there's no age limit here. This is an entry level. Again, I could be 13, 14 in this stage, or I could be 8 or 6. It doesn't matter. So you have to start to see, and again, if you just design programs for one specific group, then you may miss some things. Or you can go, again, at the end of the day, we're adding this to you because you're this age. You need to do this. You need to add this to what you're doing. Okay. Okay, provide parent education. This is my favorite one because, again, we don't like to tell people what's coming in our sport. Yeah, come on twice a week, and then, a year later, oh, you're 6 days a week, and it's going to cost you 3 times what you thought it was, and now your kid loves skating. And as a parent, you go, I guess you're going to be a figure skater. So you have to educate them on what's coming and how this all works so that they can make actual decisions based on what's good for them and their family at the same time, and not what's just good for our business at the end of it all. You can kind of tell I'm a parent, too. At the same time, I like to know stuff. But internal assessments and evaluations at this level, really important that it's not external people coming in to go, you pass or fail. And this used to be a big piece of our sport. Even probably 5 years ago, we still had judges come in at this level and teach the very, very early basics, or to grade early level skill sets. And that, unfortunately, is terrifying for most people. Some love it, but most of them are terrified by it. And you can see it. I've gone to watch a few test days here. It's really quite entertaining. When they warm up at this end, they look pretty good. And then when they go over here, they look like they have no knees any longer. And they're like, oh. You can see the ones who are comfortable and the ones who are terrified. Right? So we have to really kind of bridge that gap, that at the early stages we give them the feedback they need. And you can have testing sessions, or you can test skills at this level, but do it from the coaching perspective. So go, okay, we're going to run this. This is the test, and now you did a good job here, here, and here, because they trust you as a coach, and they know you, and then you can be honest with them. And again, that stranger they don't know. Okay. Bottom one, multi-sport participation. And this one, I say you're a child, that's figure skating. That's what I call you. I would never call you a figure skater yet at this stage. You're just a kid figure skating. It's one of the things you do. Again, this is where most coaches get mad at me, right about here, when I start talking about this. But I can tell you in my experience, if I allow the kids that I teach to become athletic, I have much easier time down the road with teaching them the stuff I want. Okay, we're really good at teaching technical skills, but we don't usually have the machine that can handle what we're trying to do. So we teach, and then we go, oh, we better build the machine now. Instead of the other way around, let's build the machine first, and then it's really easy to teach the stuff that we have to, and it goes in a much quicker fashion. So. Okay, learn to compete. This is the competition entry level. Okay. Athletes should be part of the decision-making process in this, in the planning phase. And again, we're talking, some of them are really young. And if you're really young, it should be athlete, parent, and coach together doing this. Okay, I don't believe an 8-year-old really knows what they're signing up for. Okay, but a parent may be able to help them with this. And again, your age groups are vast in this. I mean, you could be as young as single digits, and as old as 17, 18 at this stage. So it's a big gap. Okay. Focus on the health and wellness of each athlete, and I think that's really important that we don't again start to skip stages at this point. This is sometimes where we start to, we go, you're super talented, we're going to move you up, we're going to get you up here as quickly as we can, and then we start to train them like they're an adult at that point. Okay, so we got to be really careful of that health and wellness of each athlete. Again, their physical skills might be okay, but their other skills may not match those skills that we need. You got to remember too that, again, if I'm a 10, 12-year-old that's showing promise, and now I have to participate and train with 16, 17, 18-year-olds, there's a big difference in age at that point. And what's important to a 16, 17-year-old is not important to a 10 and 11, 12-year-old. So we have to really be aware to make sure that their skill sets match and that we can develop that. And do they have a pathway that works for them as well? Okay. Monitor and optimize as windows of trainability. Again, this is the phases where we introduce strength training, we introduce aerobic and anaerobic training at this stage. Okay, girls and boys are different for that, like strength training, for instance. As soon as maturation hits for women, you should be starting your strength training process, and for men, it's about a year after they've hit maturation that you start the strength training process. And a lot of times we just go, they don't need it. Again, if you miss that window, they can still get strong down the road, but they'll never be as strong as they could have been had they hit this window properly. So again, this is where sports science comes into play. How do we measure that? When do we know where that growth has hit its peak height velocity? So those are things that we have to be trained on. And that stuff, again, from a coaching perspective, we have to start adding into our coach education so that they can start to become more aware of this. And we just assume that everybody understands this, and we can't assume anything. Right? Skill development is still a big focus on this. And again, this is called learn to compete. Results mean nothing at this stage. And again, we get very carried away, and this is parents as well. that if you're not winning, then you must not be very good, and we're going to take you out of this. That has nothing to do with it. Your result means nothing at this stage. All right? And again, we get, this is one of the things that we're looking at from a competition development stage. Like, we have events now where we say results matter, and they're in this stage of development. So now our own competition model doesn't match our sport model that we're trying to create. So we have to adjust that. So that we go, okay, you can have events, but you can't go, we have who's the top 10 or the top 15. It doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. Because they're learning how to compete at this stage. They're not competing for result yet. So it's great to go, hey, I won, but that's not the important part at the end of it all. All right. Okay, there's some increased training time at this stage. Okay, when they're in this stage of development, I called them now a figure skater that plays other sports. I still want them to be multi-sport athletes. I want them to do other things as well. All right. So when we're talking about the first two stages of this, so my Learn to Skate, you may be taking a 10-week program, you may take a 20-week program. Probably the most you'll take is about a 20 to 30-week program throughout the kind of winter or fall, winter, a little bit of spring. When you get into Learn to Train, that might be, again, 30 weeks. Again, might be something that starts in September, October, and goes through to the end of April. That's the time frame you're looking at. Now you're in the Learn to Compete stage. You may be asked to do a little bit more. It might be up to 36 weeks of training time. Okay, it's not full time. It's not 52 weeks a year. It's only that. They still have to have time, again, to do other activities at this point. And this is where, again, we get hooked into going, you got to do a whole bunch more at this stage. Now there's going to be a gap here. There may be 30 weeks to 40. Like, there may be this recommended time frame, but it's not 40. You can't just go straight to it's got to be 40 weeks. It could be 30 to 40. Again, we're learning to compete. We're still a figure skater that does other activities at this stage. All right. We introduce multiple disciplines at this stage. So our sport has 5 disciplines. Most people say we have 4 disciplines, but I call men's a discipline, women's a discipline, which is getting called women's soon. They're putting that forward. It's currently called ladies, which is not as nice as what it could be. So women's, synchro, pair, ice dance. So we have those 5 disciplines. So this is where we start to introduce these disciplines. Okay, so again, probably 90% of our coaches and 90% of our athletes only skate in one discipline, and that's singles, and rarely venture into the other disciplines at all. Now, when I say we introduce this, to me, there's still a single skater as well. There's a single skater doing synchro. There's a single skater doing pair. There's a single skater doing ice dance. They don't go, I have a partner, I am now an ice dancer. They're not ready to specialize in one discipline at this point. Okay? They can venture off and try some new things. Okay? Recognize that potential injury and burnout in their athletes, because this is where it starts to happen. This is where the signs come out. Again, if we get those overuse injuries, this is, again, sometimes where we start to see it. Okay, so we got to start understanding about rest and recovery at that. This is where we also start to create individual plans for each athlete, because again, now everybody's different at this stage. Okay, so again, you may be a kid that is still in 2 or 3 sports, so you have to individualize their plan to make the most of what you have. But you might have one that's strictly, the majority of what they do is figure skating. They may do something else for a couple weeks or a month. Okay, so you have to structure the plan based on each kid. And each of these athletes has to sign off on this too at that point. Okay? We start to introduce external assessment. Always my favorite thing. Okay, this is where, again, now they start having some skills and they've gone through some other opportunities. They've done some things now that we can create opportunities in our learn to train stages where we can start to get them used to performing and doing things without any real evaluation process, so that they're at least comfortable with going out there by themselves and performing on their own. Because again, when we throw them into this testing and things like that, and they have never actually performed comfortably on their own, it's scary. That's when we get those legs locking on us. Right? Again, favorite one, continue to educate and inform parents. Everybody's favorite. Okay, train to compete. This is now, this first kind of 3 stages of development are really stages for everybody. Learn to skate, learn to train, learn to compete. It's really everybody can go through those stages without any problem. This is where we start to divide into a competitive route and I want to use the words, I'm going to use the word sport for life route. Because people get offended when you call it a recreational route or anything different. It's a sport for life. They still love to train and compete and do things, but their goals are different than the competitive route, which is, again, their competitive route is now results start to become important at that point. Okay? So we're in the train to compete stage. So this is now where you become this is your sport. Figure skating is your sport. All right? This is what I would consider a national level competition. So again, you don't have to be at the nationals, but you are working your way towards that goal to be at a national level. So domestically, junior, senior, novice. Okay, so U15, I guess, is what we have here. Novice U15 is what we would consider to be in this class. Okay. Training intensifies. Again, you're probably between train to compete, learn to win, and live to win. There's not a big difference in amount of time that's required. It's just, again, you have to watch where they're on their growth stage of development at that point. And it's really important that we make sure that we take that into consideration, because again, the age range is very vast in this group. Okay? Specialized coaching is now integrated into the program, and so is the IST team, which is the sports science team. Should start to be part of their training. And now again, we don't have a lot of this in Sweden. We don't have a lot of specialized coaching, because again, from a club perspective, are you going to hire someone to come in and teach spins? Are you going to have someone come in and do choreography? Just that. That's what they do. And that's, unfortunately, what the rest of the world does. Small countries, not so much, but the bigger countries that are certainly dominating the sport from a high performance standard, that's what they do. They have specialized coaching. All right. Again, I worked in a program. I ran a program. I couldn't put together a program if you paid me $1 million, because I don't have that brain. I'm not going to be a choreographer. I don't own that skill set. But I know someone who does, and I have them on my staff. And that's what they do. And that's all they do, is that. Okay? So that's what specialized coaching means. Okay? Chances are, again, you don't want someone who only has one skill. You may want someone that has 2 skills. Maybe they're a choreographer and a really good spin coach. Choreographer, steps, choreographer, trainer. You know, they have to have a few more things. So again, when we think about the size of our clubs, we can't have probably 5 coaches, that each one doing. They have to have complementary skill sets to each other. So you might have a technical coach and a leader, and then you might have someone who does a couple other things, and that's a team. And then you know every piece of the sport is being taught by someone who kind of has the skill set for it. That's what we're looking at. A lot of times we hire the same person, so we get 2 coaches and they do exactly the same thing. They're both technical, or they're both on that side, and that doesn't help anybody. Okay, so if you have multiple coaches, and you have to start to see, do they have the same skill set, or do they have complementary skill sets? And are they able to learn other skills as well that could help out the development of each athlete? Okay. Scheduling appropriate rest and recovery, and this is again a weakness. We're under the philosophy that more is better. That if I just skate more, I'm going to get better. Okay, eventually those bodies start to break. Okay, it's just like, again, if we worked in our jobs every day, 52 weeks a year, we would also break. Okay, we need time off. You need time off to re-energize yourself. You need time off for your body to relax. You need time off for your brain to get re-engaged in what you're doing. Athletes are no different. They have to have that time to rejuvenate their bodies, and it has to be scheduled throughout the year. So again, we can't just go from this time to this time at this level with the intensity of their training and think they're going to make it. Like they're going to eventually start to get injuries and they're going to hurt themselves. So you may go, here's a phase of development or a phase that we're going through. So it's maybe a 2 or 3 month block. Then you give them a break there after that. So we've done this. We've done our first kind of group of competitions, and now we're going to take a week off here. No skating. It's called active rest. You still have to be active, but you're not skating. You're getting away from this. And then we start again, and we start to slowly build again until the next big thing that we have to do. And then we break again. Okay? So again, I would set up my program in this way. I would have my athletes were kind of going to like worlds and junior worlds, so that was our end game, which was kind of March. That's where we had to train to. So we would start in April. We would take that month of April off, so that was the end of our season. We'd do an ice show, and then 4 weeks off. And then we would come back in early May, and we would start with a very small on-ice session, so maybe an hour a day for 5 days, and then we would do more off-ice. And then we would add 10% until we got to the end of June. So we would never go full out the first day. We would always take our time and build, so that when we hit July, that's when we would start doing things like program run-throughs. So May and June were more about strength and conditioning. That was a focus, and technique was a focus. So again, the on-ice component wasn't hard. The off-ice component was where we focused our attention. Because again, I needed to build the strength back and get them into the ability to be able to do the stuff I wanted in the summer. And then summer, we would do another block of 8 weeks where we would do programs, and we would start to just run those. Every day we do our run-throughs. Again, results weren't important at this point. It was just getting numbers up, so our endurance level was where it was at. And again, strength and conditioning now was also important, but it was a little bit less important because we spent those 2 months doing that in the first place. And then when we hit September, when the competition season started, that's when we'd work on detail at that stage. So we've done all our heavy lifting in those first kind of 2 or 3 months, and then we start to detail at that point. And then when as you got kind of finished your year, we would start to work more on performance as opposed to just technical stuff all the time. So there's a reason for doing what we did, but each kid we had to set up differently because some of them were going to Worlds or Junior Worlds and some were not, so you had to create the program for each of them that we went through. So. Okay, that's what periodization and planning means at the bottom. So learn to win. Okay, this is the entry level into international competitions. I found this picture of Alexander Mayorov today. Thought that was pretty good. He looks like he's about 12 at that point. He looks a little different today. So that's good. So this is kind of where he would have been in this stage of development. So again, the idea here is for them to learn how to handle world and Olympic environments. So right now, we have the majority of our national or international athletes are in this stage. We don't have anybody yet that's in the live to win stage. Live to win is, top third in your sport in the world. And we just don't have anybody that's at that stage right now. But some of them are close. We got a couple athletes that are close, but they're not there yet. We'll see how they make out this year. But hopefully someone can jump into it. Alexander was last year, it was the only one we had in that category in the country. So you have to encourage them to be self-driven, because again, when you get to this stage, external pressure is not what's going to make it happen for you. All right. Again, we still feel that we can drive them as coaches, as parents, etc., that we can make them come to the rink every day and work hard. I get this all the time. I used to get this all the time. Make my kid work harder. And I go, that's not my job. My job's not to make them work harder. That's their job. My job is to give them information so that they can be successful. Okay? They have to be motivated and dedicated to their own goals at this stage. All right? Definitely want them to be part of the decision-making process. Okay, this is all goal-oriented training and planning. So, for instance, if you are a junior world athlete, again, at this stage, results start to matter. They're still not the most important thing. It's not essential that we are the winners of junior worlds or winners of junior international events. It's nice. It makes everybody think that we're being successful, but it's not the important part. Are they learning the skill sets they need to be successful at the next level? That's important. Are they self-driven? Are they training with goals in mind? So again, is at this event, what do we want to accomplish? And did we accomplish it? Yes, no, why or why not? It's all a learning environment at this point. Okay, so we've set something up with our juniors that if they go away to an event and they have a team leader there, there's an evaluation process at the end of it. They have a sheet they fill out pre-event. How do they do in their day-to-day training? What do they think their percentages are? What do they think their score is? Every day. And then, what did you actually do that day? Both short and free programs. And then they have to give us three goals for the event. What is it that they want to do? They have to be measurable goals. Okay, the measurable goal is not, I want to have fun, because that's not a measurable goal. I can't measure that. So, one of the measurable goals is I want to do level 4 spins in all of my programs, blah, blah. So I can see their sheet and go, yep, you got that, or no, you missed one. You only got a level 2 here. Now explain why. Why did that happen? Okay, so they have to give those 3 goals and tell us why. Why or why not they succeeded on that. And then at the bottom of the page is what's the most important thing you learned from this event. And this could be anything. This doesn't have to be a measurable goal. I said to them, sometimes maybe you have a roommate that keeps you up at night. Like, that's important, because you may get a roommate again that keeps you up at night. So how do you handle that next time? Or maybe I didn't have a roommate and I was really lonely. How do you handle that next time? Things like that. So things that they maybe don't have control of, but they know affected them. So that we can start to learn as a collective group how we can be better at each event. And again, every event has that same process to it. So we can learn how to win. And that's why it's such a cool name. Learn to win. Right? Okay, create a no excuse environment. Okay? And this unfortunately is a work in progress. Because the kids that are at this level really like to tell me some good reasons why things didn't work out. The ice was too bitter or brittle, and it couldn't hold me when I landed. And I go, wow, it's weird how the other 12 people could. So we can't have excuses. We have to go, okay, this is what I need to fix in my day-to-day training in order to be able to be successful here. Own it. Own things. All right? It's something that we have to learn even as a federation. We have to own our issues. Okay, we can't make excuses all the time. I didn't know about that, etc. Like, we need to go, no. Like, we need to own this stuff. And go, how do we get better? Okay? Focus on time management. Because again, we're asking these athletes to do a lot of stuff. Okay, and they're at the stage too where they are our high school students. They're the ones in school till 4 o'clock. How do we get them to be successful when we have to battle certain things? Yeah, I mean, even one of our high performance girls last year, again, her scores kept going down. We started to go like, why? Why is this happening to her? And we found out she's sleeping like 5-6 hours a day. That's it. I said, well, again, that's not going to help you. You need this many hours. You need to do the math. Okay, that phone you take to bed with you, you have to maybe stop doing that. Like again, you want to be a high performance athlete, you have to make sacrifices as well to take. Again, you got to eliminate your excuses. Okay. And live to win. Again, World Olympic athletes. These athletes need to walk into any event and go, I have a chance. They can walk into any venue, any event, doesn't matter if it's start of the year, end of the year, middle of the year. They should walk in and go, yeah, I have a chance. I have a chance to win this. No excuses. They plan their training around what's important for them, their goals. Kind of, if their goals are world championships and I want to medal at world championships, the entire year is set up so that that's what happens, so that they have the best chance to do that. Again, sometimes we don't understand where we're at in the stage. I said we do have some athletes that think they're already the world champions and that's how they train, that they're going to peak at worlds. And I go, well, you got to get there first. So you have to make adjustments in where you're at. Like, this has to be an important event for you. And this is where we're going to peak. This is one of our peak times, etc. So again, we have to make sure that we create training plans for them, specifically for them, and make sure that they're healthy all the time. Because at this level, an injury can put you back 6, 7, 8 weeks. That's 6, 7, or 8 weeks that everybody else was preparing for, and then you're that far behind them. It becomes a challenge. Okay. God. Okay. Got to monitor fatigue because again, when we start getting into this stage, they're traveling a lot. Lots of air miles, lots of different venues, lots of bad food, lots of hotels, etc. Really glamorous life at that stage. Okay? And the big one here, this is what we have to really work at, and we're not successful yet, is to create a sport team to surround them. Okay? So that's making sure we have medical, and we have sports psychology, and we have strength and conditioning, nutrition, things like that, sport physiology. Again, the challenge is, and when I start to talk about this with other sport, they're also after these same people. And we have a training plan, or we work in kind of different than some places that have national team camps or national team venues, where again, if you have a national team venue, you can surround them with that. You only need one then. So you might have, skiers, for instance, if they all come to one venue and they train on that hill, etc. They surround them with this team so they have the best of the support system that they need. We have one athlete here and one athlete over here and one athlete in this club. We don't have that national team piece that we're together day in, day out, where we can surround them with that stuff. So now we're trying to find those people in their communities. So again, as I said at the start, there's not that many people that do these jobs. So, and there's also 70 other sports trying to find them. So we're working on it, we're trying, and we're getting closer, but we still don't have enough bodies there yet. Sport for Life, this is stage 7. This is the one where, again, this is one of our biggest stages and the ones that we do the least for. From a federation perspective, I'm almost ashamed of what we don't do for this group. All right, we don't offer external programs. We don't do a lot of stuff for them. We give them competitions and we go, you're in the club. And we need to be better at that. And we're trying to figure out how can we incentivize this level of athlete. Because again, some of these kids train as much as the high performance kids do. They just have different goals at the end of it all, right? So we talked about it. We have a few ideas that we want to try next year, and we'll see what happens. Again, it's hard because sometimes we can do things on weekdays and maybe their focus is on school, so they're not going to come out of school to do a skating thing, so we have to figure out how can we do this so that it works for them, for this group of athletes. This is where we find our officials, this is where we find our, club people, parents for sure would come from this stage, adult skaters, etc. There's a lot of athletes in this stage. It's a big one. Right? But we, as a sport, as a federation, have to be much, much better at this. Okay? I apologize for this slide. This is really bad. This is what our sport document looks like. Ours isn't finished yet. So, and I'm not an artist, as I told you before. Not a choreographer. Not an artist either. So, this shows you how the system works. So, many years ago, our development plan used to be a triangle. Large base, small top, you just fold it out as you went. You got to there, you weren't good, bye, see you later, or you stuck here forever, right? So now this is what the modern sport organizations look like today. This is what anybody that's trying to work through this comes up with this now. It's more of a rectangle than it is a triangle anymore. So again, the first 3 stages are down here. You can see everybody can be involved in those 3 stages as you go. Learn to compete. There's also a piece where those kids can certainly venture up into the sport for life piece. All right? This little chunk here is our competitive route. Again, when you see the whole makeup of the program, that's not a very big piece. All right? We spend a lot of money on that piece right there. There's a reason for it. I mean, high performance is important. I mean, the better your high performance athletes are, the more exposure you get, the more kids want to be part of that because, I saw so-and-so on TV, they're so good, I want to do that. There's nothing better than someone winning an Olympic medal for a sport. Nothing better. For at least a year or 2. And then you hope you can create it again at the end of it all. But that's what our model will look like. Okay? So again, the red part of the sport for life is again, they're skating for fun. There's a piece there, competitive for life, and then we have adult competitors. We have, again, there's parallel places for kids all the way through this. Again, I may not want to compete, but I can be here. I may be here. I can also venture over the line if I want. I can be a competitor today. Maybe I'm just competitive for life after that. Or I can be, hey, maybe I changed my mind. I want to be in the competitive stream. So I'm going to slide over that line. There's nothing that says you have to stay in that. That whole upper part of the rectangle is interchangeable as you go. A lot of it comes down to skill set and time and things to that nature, but it's there. Okay. Okay. Physical literacy. We talked a little bit about this. I only got 14 more slides, sorry. I was hoping I'd be done by 8. I think that's going to happen. Pardon? I was really hoping I'd be done by 8, but I don't think so. My goodness. Gosh.
Coffee break, Scott.
Coffee break?
It was, yeah.
Oh!
If it's okay.
Yes! Okay. Yeah, but everybody looks awake. Okay, coffee break, 5 minutes. And then we'll come back. Brutal. Oh.
If it's okay.
Yes, it's okay. I get brutal because I keep going. It's so
I
hot.
was going to tell you that you
Oh.
planned for a coffee break, but I forgot it. That's why.
It was planned for like 15
Good.
minutes ago.
I wasn't ready for it then. You gotta tell me these things.
I I'm sorry. Everyone, yes, I was thinking in the program I will remind because we have this parent education be the best Sportplanen in the world. So our Västerås clubs, they do before every semester education, so we can remind
Excellent.
to this.
Pick the opportunity.
That's fine.
Ta 5 minuters bensträckare och sen så börjar vi.
De pratar Scott igen. Den är workshopping.
Ja. All right.
Jag håller på mycket själv. Nej, det får inte vara mer än det. Nej, inte än. Jag har inte sagt något om februari. De vill ju åka där, ja. Det beror på exakt vilken dag det är. Alltså jag är inte som sportgalning, alltså sportkonsument. Ja, okej. Ja.
Jag vill jättegärna ha bulle. Jag ska bara, ja jättegärna. Älskar bulle. Alltid. Ja, tycker jag.
Det är jättebra initiativ. Ja, och hon hade ju lagt av. Och så min Selma, men inte att dotter, hon är så vill jag prova en och hitta lite kompis ungefär som ungdomar i samma, den här Skate for Life-gruppen. Så vi gick till det så som precis i juli förra helgen hade ja, också bra omgjort då i systemet. Ja, precis. Ja, visst. Nej, men det är alltid sen hade vi ju VM här. Det var första tävlingen som vi arrangerade med nya tävlingssystemet. Och nu förstår jag varför det här lyckades. Det känns som tävlingsarrangören gick från askan. Ja, nu hade inte jag riktigt. Det var inte jag som var andra som tog över dataansvar. Så det var ju nytt för ny tävlingskommitté till ja, det var mycket nytt och nytt också. För det var hur många saker nytt skulle jag säga. Det är klart att det gamla tävlingen hade att hantera det lättare. Kanaltävling är ju okej. Jag tänker att sista sluttävlingen var offentligt nätverk utan privat nätverk och då ska det lätta upp ja, men det var det som är slutsats eller om det man ser experter som skulle kan att det
That's mine. You take my cup. You might not get sick. That's nice. You moved my cup now. All right, I'm working so hard, I'm sweating. We'll send you some pictures.
Yeah.
No secret.
Yeah.
So do I. I get my notes down. I try to now rely on my brain, my memory, my retention. We ready to start again? Yep. Awesome. I might have lost my flow. Discovered it's hot up here all of a sudden. So, physical literacy. I talked a little bit about this originally, but this to me is a big part of sport and sport development. Really, a concept that other sport in the country is certainly looking at as well. We're starting to realize again that from a sport perspective, we can't teach all aspects of physical literacy. So again, there are things that we can do in skating that are helping, like jumping, spinning, ice, things like that are part of us, but certainly throwing and catching and kicking, etc. We don't teach that stuff. So that's where, again, multi-sport activities are very important. We used to call this playing back in the old days, back when I was a child. We played. We went outside and we played, and now people don't play as much because we have to have everything structured. So again, we don't climb trees anymore because we could get hurt doing that. Well, yeah, you could, but you could not too, right? And there are other things we do, or we used to do, again, I'm going to say 100 years ago when I was young, that we don't do anymore. And that's okay, but we have to now figure out where are we going to teach this? Where are we going to learn these skills? Again, I threw a ball by picking it up and I threw it. And again, if I wanted to be really good at throwing a ball, eventually I might go to someone to say, can you teach me how to do this better? Yeah, it's part of how we do learn to skate. We get them moving and we get them going, and then eventually we start to teach them where it is you have to push and how it is you push, etc. But you got to start somewhere, and that's what play is all about. But that's what physical literacy is about. And I don't know how the school system in Sweden works, but certainly in Canada, we had phys ed classes when we were young as well, but they cut those back. So again, we used to have phys ed every day, and now the kids have it maybe once or twice a week, or once or twice every 10-day block, or 8 days, or however they set their schedules up. So again, they're not getting the same amount of activity that, again, kids did 20, 25 years ago. So this is stuff that we have to now, as sport federations, figure out and work on. Now, the easiest thing to do is at entry levels, at learn to skate, and but stage one is to have 5 or 6 sports go together and go, here's a program. Starts on Monday and ends on Saturday. And you do each one once a week. That'd be foolish though, because then we cover everything. But again, from a club perspective, these are my athletes, right? We have to get over that thought process. And again, our government, how we fund our clubs is based on numbers. So we have to change some of those things too in order to change how we teach this stuff. Because again, in a perfect world, you'd have a facility that has swimming, and you'd have a rink, and you'd have a gym, and you'd have, and every day something would be different that these kids could be part of. That was a collective piece. And then eventually they choose the sport they like the best. Instead of going, I'm going just to skate, and boom, that's all I do. All right? Because again, we are not going to have successful athletes in any sport unless they're athletic. Okay, it's happening in all sports now. And this, again, comes down to entrepreneurs too. People are making money in sport. So again, you have hockey that now starts to get kids out when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. You got to do this all year long now. If you don't come to my camp, we're not going to pick you for the team, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. And we're just as guilty. Okay? I have a camp, so you got to come to it, etc. Like, we have to be a little bit better at how do we introduce sport to kids at a young level. And I still say my job, even as a coach, is to make you want to be active for life. It doesn't have to be in the sport that I work in. You can be active for life, then I've done my job. You like sport. you like to be active. That to me is as important or more important than having kind of the world champion. That's being recorded today so that the president of our association doesn't hear that. But, okay, because that's one of our big goals. We have to have someone like winning worlds or, okay? But that'll come. Stuff like that will come if we build this. That stuff will come. We're not going to get there if we don't start to take care of this entry-level sport and try to get some more athleticism out of our kids. Right? None of this is going to be easy, but that's where we're going. Okay. Okay. Club culture. Right. Again, this is a big concern. Not a concern, but certainly we've been in the papers a lot about our club culture. There's a lot of negative stuff going around about how clubs are operating, how we as a sport are delivering our product, and again, at the end of the day, we have to be aware of societal changes. What's acceptable 10, 20 years ago is not acceptable anymore. Maybe it wasn't even acceptable back then, but we thought it was. And then I go back to my own skating life and I go, wow, I would never teach a child the way I was taught. It was harsh. And I still like skate. I still like sport. I still like doing that stuff. But we have to evolve. And athletes and kids, especially today, know that they have certain rights. And we have to respect those rights. They're still people at the end of it all. As a coach, as a club, we have to set programs up and we have to go, this is the rules. And people have to follow the rules. That's no problem. But we also have to respect the fact that again, everybody has their own target at the end of it all. And it's not about, again, being in this for me. So again, as a coach, I can't do this because this is important to me, that you're there. It has to be what's important for that athlete. Okay, so we have to set that up within our own organization and understand who we're working with and the ages that we're working with. Okay? Second point there, sport is fun. Don't tell that to a high performance athlete, sport is fun. It is. When they compete and they do things, it's fun, but the training's hard. All right? But also understand too that one person's fun is another person's not fun, and vice versa. Like there are people that, again, if you have just a jovial, happy, we don't do anything environment, that's great for people that just want to be there to hang out. That's not fun for someone who wants to improve and get better, who is a competitive mindset. That's not fun for them, and vice versa. Pushing and making sure that everybody attacks and goes at it is fun for some but not for others. So again, you got to know who you're working with and what levels you're at. Okay? You need to make these clubs safe for everyone. Okay? And that sounds logical. Sounds like, oh, that makes sense. We should make it safe. We should. Again, are we as parents, are we as board members, are we as coaches really observing what's going on at the end of this all? Okay, we're really good at going, okay, you got my kid for 3 hours. Is there anybody, are we really checking to see what's happening on a day-to-day basis? Doesn't have to be every day, but we have to talk to people. Are you talking to your kids? Are the kids expressing things? Are you seeing signs that maybe this isn't safe? Maybe this isn't a good place to be. All right? And we have to listen a little bit too. And I would say, again, in sport, 99% of all programs are safe and fun, and they're doing it for the right reason. But there's the 1% that maybe isn't. All right, there's a lot of rules and a lot of things happen in Canada because of a couple terrible, terrible incidents, terrible things that you go, how the hell did they get away with it for so long? Terrible stuff. And then all of a sudden rules were put in place and things happen. So checks and balances and things like that. And it's, again, why did we allow that to happen? You know, we have to be able to speak, and we have to be all right to go, okay, I don't agree with this in a society. So that's what we're after. We want to have those safe environments. Like I said, 99%, probably 99.9% of all programs are that. They're doing it for the right reason. But we just have to be careful that we're not in the one that isn't. Right. Talk about a little bit about the role of the club. The club's there again to set programs and make sure that again you have the right people working with your kids and the athletes. Again, it's okay to talk to the coaches and make sure that they are who they think they are at the end of it all. Again, in Canada, we have to have a background check done in order to work with children at all. So coaches as well, you have to have that police background check. Interviews every year, entry and exit interviews, how things go. People have no problem at all because of some of the incidents that have happened in that country of being more aggressive with those things, just to make sure you have the right people in the right places. Like surveys with your athletes, surveys with your parents to find out if the experience was positive at the end of it all. So as a club, we can do that. We have that ability to have those answers. Okay? What's the role of the coach? Well, the coach is to help an athlete reach their goals. That's what their role is. All right? Provide, again, a positive, exciting environment to be part of and safe. That's their job. Okay? Their job is to make that opportunity happen for those athletes and to give them as much instruction and help as they can. It can't be forced on them. Again, you have to be able to read the people you're with. Again, you might have an athlete that at the start of the year is, let's go and get this done, and at the end of the year they're the opposite. You have to learn how to read them. All right, it's very important. Role of the athlete, again, is to participate in the best method they can. Like, be there, show up, work hard, have fun. Right? I think the big thing is have fun. It's kind of important. Make friends. Do all that. Right? It's not about always just we got to be there to win. We got to be there to beat our friend. We got to do all that because we're competitive in a lot of stuff in life. But sport should be fun. It should be about making friends. It should be about community at that point. And really, this whole thing, club, is a community. That's what it is. It's a small community, but we're all a community. We all want the best. It's in the best interest of everybody there. And that's what we should. If we have that thought process and that philosophy, then you're going to have safe environments. Everybody wants to be there. Everybody's, doing what's in the best interest of everybody that's there. Okay. Role of the parent, certainly to support. Certainly to support and to again, get the kid there on time. Make sure that you understand the schedule, what you've signed up for. All right? Don't go halfway through the year, I didn't know I signed up for this. Again, we can't make that excuse. We got to go, what are we signing up for? Okay, I understand. Yes, I can. No, we can't do this. And it's okay to say, no, we can't do this. It doesn't fit our life. Then we have to figure out what does. How can we make this work for you? Okay? So parents have a big role here. And everybody's an individual. I keep stressing that. Everybody has their own podium. And I say that because, again, someone might have, I want to be standing at the Olympics on the top row. That's their podium. Someone else's podium might be, I want to skate till I'm 30. And if I make it to 30, then I've won. And I've done this. And I like to tell a story about a young lady that I taught. She came from a single parent family. Her dad passed away when she was 3 years old. I was raised by her mother. The kid was part of my competitive program and really wasn't exceptionally athletic. But this is a young lady who tried harder than anybody I'd ever met in my life. So she was very persistent. She worked hard, she tried hard. And again, this was something that she wanted because she loved skating. And so if I were a true competitive coach, I would have said, no, you don't belong here. You're not good enough. But I saw her effort level, which I thought was more important than her skill level. So end of the day, eventually she ended up doing stuff in skating that I never thought would be possible. she took, well, we used to have a novice test in order to get into the novice level. She took it 13 times. She failed it 12 times. She finally passed it on the 13th time. Which again, we never thought she'd ever pass it, but she did, and then she competed at that level for a little while. And then the strange part is, and this is the part that I think is the most important part of this story, is that she came to me, she finished her high school, and she had me come in and speak to one of her classes one time, and I go, well, this is a really interesting class. It was like filled with like brilliant kids, and she was one of them, and I didn't realize that she was this bright. She was a genius. And so she went to university, and after 2 years, after the year and a half of her university, she came to me and said, can you write me a letter of recommendation, because I want to go to med school. And I went, I'm going to go to med school? Again, in Canada, a typical med student is around 27 years old. That's an average age. She was 18 at the time that she applied for this. So, again, I wrote her the letter of recommendation, and I said, you know that I'm not really that smart, and that your doctor people that are going to read this aren't going to be that impressed by it. But it turned out that it was very much how she ended up becoming what she was. She's now a heart surgeon. Her skill set was that she was brilliant, and she used her skills to her advantage. And she said she never would have done this had she not skated, had she not known how to be persistent in the sport that she was in. And that brings kind of tears to my eyes every time I tell this, because again, had I thought in a different fashion, I would have thrown her out. I would have said, no, you're not welcome here because you're not good enough. But it turns out, again, she was good enough. She showed me she was good enough. She had her own podium. She had her own pathway, and her own podium was, I want to make it to that level. She got there, and then she moved on and did something with the skill set she owned. And the nice part is someday she's going to save my life, which is really important. Because I'm destined for one of those heart attacks. I talked about this already. We have 5 disciplines in this sport. But again, we focus a lot on the top 2 disciplines. And then we don't do a lot about the last 3. So it's very important, because there are kids that have skill sets that fit those other 3 disciplines more than they do on the singles side. Okay, so we've got to give opportunities there as well. And it's hard. It's hard as a coach, because you may not know this. You may never have done pair, you may never have done ice dance, you may never have done synchro. So you only know what you know. So again, if you really are interested in developing your athletes, you start to go learn this stuff. You read about it, you find out, you find mentors who can make this stuff happen for you. You don't have to be brilliant at it, you just have to know how to do basics. Teach them something, introduce them to it. If they like it and they have a skill set for it, then we can find them a place somewhere down the road at the end of it all. I certainly don't want kids leaving home when they're young to do ice dance or pair or synchro. I think that's wrong. Again, I also tell this, if my daughter was 13, there's no way I would have sent her away and lived with someone else. But at 16, I'd have driven her there. Easy. Because she just needed to be gone at that point. Right? But there's a time and a place for that. And usually, again, we go to university at this age. We go to things at this age, and we can do that in our sport as well. But if we can introduce this stuff when they're young and go, okay, I have a passion for this is what I can do, then we figure out how to fill it in. All right? I'm going to help. This is what you asked. What is high performance? Okay. So this is high performance. What defines high performance? High performance, again, is top 3rd in the world. That's what it is. We get carried away by going, we have high performance athletes. We have athletes that are on a competitive pathway. It's a big difference. But we go, no, I have high performance athletes and they're 15 and they're novice. They're not. High performance means live to win. That's what it is. That's the stage. And that's the top 3rd in the world. So again, if I look at women, For instance, at the World Championships, there's between 40 and 45 athletes that qualify for that, so the top third is 15. So 15 and above are considered high performance. They're in the live to win stage. So we have athletes that qualify for Worlds, but right now they're sitting at around the 25 to 30 stage. So yes, they're still in the learn to win stage. They're not in the live to win stage yet. So there's a big difference in that. So I can't expect them to walk in the building and go, I can win this. They're not ready for that yet. Okay, but that's what high performance is. That's the definition. What are our goals? Our goals are pretty lofty. Okay, so we want to have athletes in that live to win stage in all 5 disciplines by 2026, which is awesome. It's 2020 and we have nobody right now in any of them. Yeah, that's realistic, right? It is.
Why you are, right?
Yeah, that's what they keep telling me. That's why I'm here. It's really lofty. Like the goal's really lofty. Originally, it was we want medals at Olympics by 2026. I'm like, come on. That's pretty high. That's pretty challenging. Again, with the amount of injury we have and things like that, like we have to make some drastic changes in order to put the system in place so we can get them to there and get them to that finish line. That's what would be more important to me. And I think from a goal from a federation is we again have to create pathways for everybody. And we just can't focus on one group of athletes. But that's where we're at. That's kind of our goals from a high performance perspective. It's what we have to live with. We're going to try our best. But again, we have to surround those athletes that we have with all the specialists we can. So, again, if a board says this is what we have to do, or this is what our goals are, you also got to show me the money. You got to go, here's the money to make that happen. Well, hopefully that's what we get, because if without it, it's not going to work. But we also have to show them that we're ready. We don't have anyone in this stage yet, so that's fine. That's our current status. We have nobody in this stage. 2021 is the World Championships in Stockholm, kind of an important year for us. We do have a couple of athletes, maybe more than a couple, that are trending upward. So that's a good thing. They're still not ready yet to be the face on the poster for Worlds, but they're trending upward, and that gives them a whole year. One of them is going into his first World Championships. Okay, he's doing Junior Worlds and he's doing Worlds. Junior Worlds, the goals are different. Junior Worlds, he's going to walk in there going, I have a chance. Worlds, he's going to walk in there going, I have no chance. So our goals are different. So our goals for Worlds are, you just have to do what you can do. And you don't have the stuff yet. You don't have the things required to be in that realm. You don't have enough stuff yet. That's fine. But you didn't have enough stuff at Junior Worlds last year, and now you do. So we've got to keep improving, and we as a federation have to make sure that we set realistic goals for them. I can't go, no, we got to make you like top 10 at Worlds next year, or push them in that fashion, and we'll lose this boy. Okay? Same with our girl. We have 2 or 3 girls now that are starting to trend upward, which is good. All right, so now we're at least getting some competition in what we're doing, and they're starting to deliver a little bit better going forward. So that's good. But they're not ready to be the person on the poster either. Okay? But I think from a country perspective, it's a good opportunity for us. It's good for these kids to go, okay, I'm gonna prepare, and this is gonna be a kind of an interesting year for us. So that's where we're at. 2022 and 26. 2022 again is a learning opportunity for most of our athletes. Now the difference here is that the rules with the Olympic Committee require a second time Olympian to be top 8 in their field in order to be even accepted onto the Olympic team. which is again the top 8. The difference between the 1 and 12 at Worlds is that. It's not much. It's a very small difference. You might have stepped out of something. That's all you did. You didn't fall, you didn't make a mistake, you didn't do anything harsh. But that's the difference. That's how fine the gap is. So it's again something that we know about, so we know we have to get to that stage where we have 2 full years to get to that stage. So one of our women has had 1 Olympics under her belt, so she then would have to show that she's a top 8 in order to advance. And other disciplines, they can go in as a first-time Olympian, which means it's a learning opportunity for them. So it's a little bit different. But once you've had your learning opportunity, you have to then reach the goals 4 years later. But we know the rules, and we'll see what happens. All right. That's 2022-26. That's again, that's another 4 years for us to continue to develop. So hoping that we can get there again. If we can get this start to build and to flourish, and we can get some kids that can make it to the finish line, I think we're going to be successful. Okay? Again, if we win something, hallelujah. I still don't see that as, it's good to have a goal like that, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It's not the most important thing at the end of it all. I like to see that, can we continue to improve? And it may not happen by 2026, it may happen by 2030, it may happen by 2034, I don't know. But we got to set a system in place that we can get there at this point. Right? Challenges. There's no challenges at all. School system, I talked about that, that's a challenge. That's a challenge for us in this sport, because again, when you talk about 2 and 3, they kind of all work together hand in hand at that point, right? So again, the kids that don't need a lot of ice time and can have as much as they want. The ones that need more can't. So it's really a challenge. So that's something that we have to, again, from a federation, figure out how we're going to make this work. Okay. There are schools that will work with sport, so we have to take advantage of those. And I don't think we do. We don't take full advantage of that, of the systems that are there for us. And again, once we do that and get the right kids in the right places, I think we'll have more success in this fashion. Okay. Facilities, as I said, there's not a lot. I mean, there's not a large number. Like I said, I can count on one hand how many are open over 10 months a year. So again, when you're talking about a sport that trains, at the top levels, probably 45 to 48 weeks a year, that's a lot. And you don't have facilities open that often. It becomes a challenge. How do we make that work? Ice time, other ice sport user groups. It's always my favorite. Everybody loves hockey. I know that. Okay, but we can work together. All right. But the downside is there's a lot of in a lot of the big areas, the big facilities, and the really well done facilities, meaning they have all the off-ice activity places are owned by the hockey teams, and they just don't let us use them, which I find strange. You can use the ice, but you can't use any other rooms. So we just have to create much better communication and much better partnerships with everybody, because we can work together. It does happen. Sport knowledge is a challenge. Again, we're a small country, and we don't have an abundance of coaches. We just don't. They're not crawling out of the woodwork. It's a hard job. It's again, looking back at it, or looking at it now, if I were, a 20-something going to university, this is probably not the job I'd pick. All right? Unless I really love skating, I love sport, I love coaching. Because it's terrible hours. It's not great pay. I mean, there's other things, but again, you have to have that love. And the problem we have right now is we have a demographic of coaches that are older, and they're going to retire eventually, and we don't have enough down at this level. We need to draw that into it. So that's a challenge. Okay. Sports science professionals, I talked about that. It's not helping us. We don't have enough of them. In the current system, again, everything has to match. And right now, not everything's matching. So we have to make sure, this is why this is a much bigger project than I ever envisioned it was going to be. So there's a lot of stuff, again, how do you match coach education to this, to the system we're trying to create? How do you match competitions to this? How do you match everything to this one particular growth in the sport? So all that stuff has to match in order for this to make sense. So you can't have coaches being educated one way and the system going a different way. We have to make sure all that matches. So we are tearing apart the coach education system to make sure that we put things in place that make sense. One of the things that we have to do is we have to teach them how to coach. We have to talk about this safe environments, how to deal with children, how to deal with teenagers, how to deal with that stuff. And we focus a lot of our coach education on technical stuff. And technical stuff you can't learn on a weekend. Doesn't work that way. Technical stuff is stuff that you learn in time. That you're going to learn how you do this. You're going to learn that stuff. As you get better at coaching, or as you have more experience at coaching, you start to figure that out. But we are under this impression we can teach that to you in a weekend. Give you just enough information to be dangerous at that point. So we have to readjust this to make our coach education make more sense, to help everybody in the room at that stage. Okay. So our sport plan focus, again, I mean, I've talked about this a few times already today. Yeah, health and wellness, that's really important. I probably could have just left it at that because it really defines the rest of the things we have to do. We have to take care of all our athletes. And again, all parts of the athletes, not just the physical part. All right? Really important. Responsible adult. What does this mean? Okay, again, this is again, touched a little bit on this at the start in one of the slides, that everybody here has a role. Right? The board members have a role, the parents have a role, the coaches have a role. And again, we have to create an environment that is conducive to learning and conducive to safety at the same time. So that's what our job is. It's what our role is from an adult perspective. And we see it in a lot of things. Again, it's easy to forget sometimes, yes?
Sorry, yeah, back one.
Absolutely.
Because to the challenges. So when I look at your plan, it's not really reflecting the challenges. So how do you think that we should overcome those challenges? Because I think all of us in this room recognize each and every one of them. So
how do we overcome that? Again, a lot of it is about talking to other sport to see how they're doing it. Not kind of isolating ourselves to think we have to figure this all out by ourselves. When I talk to other sport and other activities, we all have the same struggles. The problem is that we're all trying to solve it independently. So really, our challenges could be less if we kind of got together. Like people in my role, for instance, all get together multiple times a year, which is really hard. Like we talk about it, but we don't do it. So we have to start doing those things to go, okay, here's the challenges, how are you solving these things? And
because there are different layers. You can go to the government,
yes.
but you also need to go to the municipalities
Yes.
and local government.
Mhm.
So it's quite complex.
yes, it's very complex, and again, I mean, I put the challenges up there. I never once said I had the solutions for any of them at this stage. But these are things that we know we have to work through, that we have to figure out.
How
Again,
did they do it in Canada?
how did we do it in Canada?
Yeah.
I think, well, I don't think, I know Canada is very similar, but we have different, again, some of the challenges that I had up there, we didn't have the same challenges. So again, we're talking about ice time. We don't have ice time challenges. We don't
Yeah.
have school challenges like that because we have multiple schools that work around and have different schedules. It's not hard to take advantage of things. The problem when you talk about ice time and facilities, etc., is, and this is one thing that's a challenge in both countries, is that when you go to a politician, a municipality, and go, we need another rink, we need another ice surface, they're going to go, you're not using it now. Like from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the building's closed. Like, no one's on it. So why would we build another one that's not going to get used? So these are, again, if you fix a couple other of these challenges, then all of a sudden your ice time allotment becomes easier to fulfill, and you can start to develop better in those ways. So it's a lot of stuff that, again, if you can fix one, maybe you can fix 2 or 3 of them. But you're right when you're talking about government levels, for sure, really hard, because they don't care about figure skating. They don't care about one specific activity. They look at the whole umbrella, the whole thing. It's very similar, again, from my side. I gotta look at this, the whole thing. I can't just worry about this little piece in the middle. You might be super passionate about that one little piece, but I have to see how it fits here, and so does a government person. They have to go, yeah, that's great that you need that, but doesn't fit the whole plan. So,
Because the rest of the plan is linked to that. If you look at least we are quite a small figure skating club, and we have few coaches, and a lot of young children, and figure skating, and they go to other sports, for example, and then they call us like 3 years later, and they want to come back. And we would love to have them, but with 7 coaches and full groups and no ice, it's really difficult.
Yes.
Because then if you need to think about a lifetime commitment, then maybe they can come back and become a little bit better, and then become coaches. I agree to all of that, but it's very difficult if you don't have ice time and the coaches are limited. And how do you prioritize the ones that want to come back, or the ones that really wants to do good?
well, I think you have to look at both groups. You don't think you can turn your back on any of them. Sometimes that comes down to also how are you structuring the ice you have? How's your plan? Are you limiting numbers? Like you can only have this many on the ice, or how are you doing that? You just have to look at how do you take advantage of what you have and what you don't have at the end of it all. Again, I mean, I see sessions in Sweden where there's 10, 12 kids on the ice, and they think it's full. You go to the States and you have 10 or 12 on the ice, they'd laugh at you when they have 70 out there. Like the place is packed with people, and they can make it work because that's what they're used to. We're used to this. Canada's very similar. We only have so many people on the ice because we think, oh, you're going to get in the way. But we have different challenges. Canada had different challenges. Again, I get it. You only have so much ice. How do we use what we have to satisfy everybody? And again, that's the challenge. Where do you put that group of kids that wants to come back? And how often do they want to skate? Do they fit into the system anymore? Right? So
And
how do you
those-
make that work? Go ahead.
And we are also working a lot from the federation perspective on facilities.
Facilities.
That is one of our main bullets to work on, actually, and to make people understand what needs the figure skating has, and that we need more ice time and more sports facilities all over. So it's a very delicate but also very important and in time subject. A lot of conferences all over the country about facilities. We want people to be organized and to move more, so we also need to give the people the facilities. Ice facilities, ice rinks, are tough because they are very expensive, but they are also on the agenda. We need more ice rinks all over the country. So it's one of the bullets that is actually the job of the federation to push for and to work on, and we are really active in this work. I need to say, and we are also cooperating with ice hockey and other ice sports and trying to find good ways in the future. but it's a tough work and it's expensive and well, it will not happen until tomorrow, but it's a long-term work. And also the current systems is something we really can impact and
Yes.
that we also need to change.
Mhm.
That is a huge work we have
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
to
that's-
make it work
Mhm.
according to the model and also
Yeah.
to make it work out on the clubs.
Yeah, and if we can prove to the municipalities and school systems and stuff that what we're doing is important and that these are our wants and needs, then we have to show from our side that we're doing work on it too, moving forward. So I don't have a simple answer for that question, to be honest with you.
No, it's not simple.
No, it's not.
Just wondering.
No.
And with the school system, we also have talked about a lot.
Yes.
That the problem is that we also need to peak right now. We think that we need to be so good at 13, 14 when they need their school as well.
Mhm.
But if they work on it after
Yes.
the
School.
school, and wait a little bit before they go to.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Right, let's move on here. So, just talked a little bit about the districts too, that we have 11 districts in the country. We need to create this partnership between the district and ourselves, for sure. Again, it's about creating consistencies and opportunities in all districts. So again, philosophy really has to be from a federation perspective is that doesn't matter where you live, you should have the same opportunities in the sport itself. And that's not happening today. It doesn't happen at all today. Again, there's some strong districts, some weak districts, and certainly the interaction or the connection between the federation and the districts are minimal at this point, and we need to have a much better organized dialogue. So it's something that, again, I know needs to be done, and we need to figure out how we're going to get to that stage. So that's something we need to create and to make happen, but certainly we don't have a consistency in the country itself at this point from delivery of programs. So, all right. Competitions, and I always say this is always my most volatile topic, because when I start playing around with your competitions, you all get mad at me. But again, the competition structure has to meet the levels of development as well. There are going to be recommended numbers of events, competitions that people should be in at each stage. Again, kind of your learn to train and your learn to compete stages should be more local. Again, we got to keep costs down. We got to make sure that, again, they're not traveling all across the country in order to make an event. It should be within a certain distance that they have to compete at. And the numbers, and they have to be at the right time of year as well, because again, in those stages, it's about development. It's not about competition at that point. It's about skill development. So again, what are the appropriate numbers, the appropriate opportunities for each level at this stage? So it matches what we're doing. Cost factors are very important. And I put down here alternatives to competition, because again, we know competition. So we see that as a place to show our stuff. And there's other things we can do. There's other opportunities to perform that are in a different capacity. Again, there are things that again, we have to work out from a federation perspective as far as what the rules are for what clubs and districts can do as far as these performance opportunities. Again, can you run something that is a day where 3 or 4 clubs come in and they do stuff together, team events, different things that don't have anything to do with solos and competition in that fashion, but it's an opportunity to learn how to perform as you go forward. So again, things like this were introduced in Ontario a couple of years ago, and they're starting to take off now because people are going, okay, I can think outside the box. Again, from a club, you know what your athletes' needs are. I don't. I'm not in your club, so I don't know what your athletes' needs are. You do. So you need to design programs and things, performance opportunities that will best suit their needs. So again, if I'm designing them as a generic fashion. I'm just assuming everybody needs this. But as an individual club, you can go, this is what we need to develop our athletes. We're also under this misconception that everybody likes to compete. I hear this all the time. They love competing. I'm going to tell you what, some of them don't like to compete. Some of them are terrified of it. Some kids don't like going to competition to come 50th. It's really not that fun. Some of them know they're not ready. Again, if I'm competing against someone that skates 5 days a week and I skate 1 day a week and I have to compete against them, I know I don't have much of a chance. So that's actually not fun for me. But we assume it is. So we have to give those kids other opportunities also to grow and develop. A lot of kids like to skate on the ice by themselves. That they like. They love that. So can we develop other alternatives as well as competition? Competition has its purpose, there's no question. But we also have to teach them how to perform at the end of it all. Okay? Then I want to talk a little bit about, again, youth sport versus adult sport. And again, young bodies are still growing in youth sport, and we got to remember that we can't train them the same way. Can't train a 12-year-old the same way train a 20-year-old. Okay, there's difference in their body sizes and their maturation at that point. Got to keep it fun. Okay. I like to say, let children train with children. Right? Even though the athlete may be so much more skilled at 12 than the other 12-year-olds are, they still need that interaction with 12-year-olds. They may have the same skill set physically as the 18, 19-year-olds. But as I mentioned before, they have different wants and needs at that age. But you got to watch that. Okay? It's one of the things that we do. We train them in the same capacity. Like we go, where again, it's rare you'd have a 12-year-old in school with 20-year-olds. Again, they may be exceptional, right? But again, is that in the best interest of that kid? It might be. Again, everyone's different. Everyone's different, but you got to be aware of that. Okay. We train them differently. I want to say train their age, not their skill set. So again, that's really important. And big thing with youth sport is it's supposed to be fun, and we got to keep it fun at the end of it all. Okay. Okay. So here are our goals for 2026. World Olympic participation in all disciplines. Told you that's a fun one for me. We want to create a clear pathway and development opportunities for all athletes, coaches, officials, and clubs. All right. So again, we're introducing this now, and I certainly don't expect instant results. But we need to start to make some changes in our structure, and a lot of that comes from us as a federation, to produce the material for the clubs to start going, okay, this is what we need to do. This is the way we're going to start to develop the sport and sport in general. Okay, strong relationship between SKF and the clubs, and I don't think that exists today. So that's really a big goal for 2026. Okay, we're trying. I mean, I'm trying my best to get to as many clubs as I can. I've been to around 50 so far in a year and a half. And again, just to say, this is who I am. I want to watch your program. I want to see how things go. And sometimes people are surprised when I show up. Other times they're not surprised. But I think it's important from a federation, in my job in particular, is that I go see what's real. Like I can sit in my office all day long, every day, and just think this is real, but once I go into the club and I see what actually happens, there's nothing that this will do unless I have it in realistic perspective on it. Again, the nice part is I coached for a long time, so I understand some of this stuff, and things that are challenges from a club. And I also, in Canada, I ran my own program, so I ran my own club, so I was the board. I did all the budgeting. I trained all the coaches. I mentored them all, so I did all those jobs. So I have a pretty good understanding and perspective of how the club operates and runs at the same time. So again, I could see when I walk in strengths and weaknesses quite quickly, so that's good. But also to go, okay, yeah, there's some things in this presentation you're going to go, well, how are you going to do that? And all of that stuff is going to take time. It's going to take some trial and error. And I'm also not afraid to try stuff to go, that worked? That didn't work so well. I'll be the first one to go, it didn't work. Let's try something different. All right? So that to me is also very big, that we have that kind of strong relationship, and I think this is why it's important that Camilla and I come out to all the districts right now to say, this is who we are, this is what we're trying to do. This is the direction we're going, so you can see that we are people, and we're humans just like you are. We're doing the best we can. And again, we want to do what's in the best interest of the sport at the end of it all. And I hope that message is coming through, that this is not about me at all. This is about the athlete. This is about making sure that they can be as successful as they choose to be. All right?
May I ask another question?
Absolutely.
I was wondering a bit how you're, because you have your clear pathway and development opportunities for coaches, for example.
Mhm.
And one of the problems, as you mentioned yourself, is to attract and retain
Yes.
coaches. And that a lot of coaches are retiring. So how can we work together to attract new coaches to stay? Because as you said yourself, you would maybe not have taken that pathway yourself if you were younger. But how can we make that an attractive?
Well, that's going to be a bit, again, that's a challenge, obviously, right? Our coaching education program is getting revamped, like it's getting looked at and redone. Because again, I don't think we cover enough information in our education that deals with anything besides on-ice issues. We need to give our coaches more tools to use to help them grow. We also have to stop saying that only our high-performance coaches are good coaches. That we have to create a pathway that, again, right now we have up to level 4B, and if you're 4B, that means you're a high-performance coach, and you get paid more because you're there. So if you're an entry-level coach or coaching in those first 2 or 3 stages of development, then I need to be a level 2 coach, and I'm going to stop my growth and development there. We want to create it so that those coaches also have opportunities to become level whatever. Like we may go up to level 8, and they have opportunities in their own specialties to grow as coaches as well. So I can potentially be a level 8 coach at stage 2 and 3 of development. So again, now I can also earn more money. I can do things in that fashion. So it becomes a little bit more attractive to be a good coach at every level, not just high performance. And we have to, again, start to take that into account. Years of experience, but years of experience is always an interesting thing. You could have 25 years of experience, or you could have 1 year of experience you've repeated 25 times. So there's a big difference in that, right? Are you actually improving yourself and your skills? But today we don't offer a ton of extra things for those coaches besides you go to the next level and learn stuff that again doesn't apply to them. So we have to create a different kind of pathway and opportunity. Again, I can't make clubs pay more money. I can't entice skaters to want to coach. Like I can't do that. So again, a lot of it comes down to what's your personal passion and what do you want to do. Still not hard to become a skating coach. That's the nice part. If I wanted to be a doctor, well, I have to go to school to do it. If I want to be a skating coach, I have to take a couple of courses and I can do it. So it's not hard to get a job in this. So but to me, we again have to create an education system that is valuable for them as coaches so that they can be more valuable to their clubs and their athletes. Any question back there? Yeah.
Ja, if I can say Swedish till annat. För jag tänkte, nu håller vi avrunda och några börjar gå. Så att jag tänkte, många av de frågor som, eller nu kommer det några frågor, men vi ska göra utrymme för att prata om det här. Vi har haft möte med Alma här som kommer från Västmanlands RFCIS och med Uppland och Sörmland. Att både att ha utbildningar i föreningar. Ja, vi ska träffas den 9 maj som ni har sett och vi kommer också att kunna ha dialog om sådana här saker och på vårt årsmöte i höst att vi kan prata om de här sakerna. Hur kan vi jobba tillsammans med Sportplanen? Är ni med? Och jag tänker när han visar att förbundet ska prata med distrikten så tänker jag också om vi ser den här rektangeln som Scott visade upp här, vad som ska finnas i en förening som kanske ska ha åkare som tävlar på olympisk nivå. Så kanske i det här rummet samlat så har vi de resurserna som ni ser i fyrkanten. Och det är kanske något att tänka på framöver. Hur kan vi jobba ihop tillsammans för att kunna nå längre i våran sport? Vad har vi i de olika föreningarna där vi kan hjälpas åt? Men det var något annat. Bara lite snabbt innan alla går tar ner lappen och så får man avsluta. Så jag tänker att det kommer att finnas fler tillfällen att prata om det här. Sorry about the Swedish. I was just trying to be fast.
No worries. Yeah. So have I been all night. Again, we haven't got, so last slide. I skipped one because it's not relevant, but questions now. Again, we're getting close to 9 o'clock and I'll stick around for a bit of time after if you want to talk to me, or feel free to contact me. You can email me at that or you can phone me. I will send this to the district, the PowerPoint, and they can distribute it to everybody as well, so you have the information and you have my contact information. I'm happy to answer questions as we go. I know this is a lot of information and some of it is not, again, well, most of it is not completed yet, but this is the direction we're going. Okay, we'll put the fine details in and it'll be produced in a short time. All right. We're a little behind schedule from what I was hoping to have happen, but again, I want to do this right. I want to make sure we have the right information that's helpful to everybody. All right? Any questions? Everybody want to get the hell out of here? It's tired. I'm tired too. All right, thank you so much for your patience. My wife wants me to ask questions, SFE questions. Like if anyone can explain what the hell this means, they get a prize.
Det är enklast där om ni lämnar porslin och pappersskräp på bordet så fixar vi.
Okay.
I thought it was 9:08 or 10:10. If it's 10:10, I will be waiting for you for 2 hours, but I don't think it's far away. It's only a couple of meters away.
Made it.
I wonder about in Canada when you play hockey and for how long the season is, because the issue here in almost in Västerås is when the season is finished for the hockey guys, they want to go totally off ice, and that's a problem for us because we're fighting about the ice on the season, but if they doing bad in the
playoffs,
they want to put the
you
skates
have
and then we have to run the ice by ourselves. We have like 5 rings here in Västerås, and they're finished in the end of March.
you have to cover the cost.
Yeah, we have to cover the cost for
They have no hockey entrepreneurs. They have no spring hockey.
yeah, but I'm talking to the hockey guys. They want to go off ice. They have no interest to go on ice.
When do they want to come back on the ice? They're more summer.
28 is the beginning of July. It's kind of early, so we started week 31 or 30.
But it's an option to look at, readjusting your schedule too. To go, okay, again, from a club perspective, what are important dates for you? So what are things, again, competitions and things like that, what are your important things? So a lot of times, if you look at, okay, our target first event is here, we're not starting our ice time till here, you may want to look at backing it up and getting more time in the summer, and then stopping earlier, like stopping in March or April, or again, if you only have to keep the ice going for another couple of weeks or something like that, you can do that, as opposed to trying to keep it going for a month or two. So just adjusting that or going, so if we say we want to start now, like at the end of July, summer holidays are done, maybe hockey would want to start there too, and now you have partners all the way. So it's just about having conversations, but also looking at your own schedule, because we're very fixed on what we need to have. Because why do you need to have ice in April unless there's something specific you need?
I see a shift during years I've been around, this 10 years or something like that. And 10 years ago, nobody talked about ice time in May or June.
Right, exactly.
And now, all was so important, all kids cannot perform without it.
And again, can you do more stuff off ice as well as a club, as opposed to on ice? Because we are so fixed on we have to do it on the ice. Like again, we can do stuff off ice as well.
Yeah.
So it's just about looking at, again, sitting down and looking from a club perspective, what's important. Can we adjust our schedule too, or are we so set on this is what we need? And then at that point, then you have to either convince them that they need it, or you have to like suck it up and buy more ice. At that point, that's what I would look at.
But here we have 3 months almost of ice.
Yeah.
April, May, and June. So.
And then you take July off.
No, we'll be starting in July.
Oh, yeah. So you go 12 months.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, but in July is the kids and the parents is the vacation month. So I think it should be good to just have the hockey guys to play a little bit longer. If they are fighting to the end in
Then they stay longer.
Beginning of May, the final for the hockey games in Sweden. But here in Västerås, maybe it's out in the end of March. So maybe
what I would suggest is maybe one day I can come down and look at how your schedule looks and talk to you about kind of options, because I may see it in a different fashion too, coming from outside but understanding the sport too. Like what can you do differently?
Yeah,
och
because
ni skulle ha med
now we are going to maybe Örebro and
vill ni vara inne hos mig?
another city, but it's
Ja,
you know,
vi
it's
är
a 1 hour ride for kids,
Absolutely.
and it's
It's
Ja,
time
då
consuming.
så.
Yeah. I mean, we had hockey running all the time, so it wasn't really an issue.
yeah. But in Canada, they maybe have a little bit longer season.
Jättebra.
No, but they'll have spring hockey, but they'll also have, this is where the entrepreneurs start doing camps and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, I am talking to the hockey guys as well with the camps, but
See, but our
camps, so
but our rink would leave the rink open for our program because I took so much ice time. But I also I did figure skating and hockey. I did both programs. So I did a hockey development program, which took a lot of time, and I did a figure skating program that took a lot of time. So I could rent 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that wasn't a problem.
But it should be nice for us to have at least one rink
Yes.
up and running for the.
Yeah.
We have five rinks, and
And maybe that comes down to having using our office to help you push that message across. Too. Has a little more impact from the federation as well.
yeah. But there's one thing that the hockey club they have they want their players to go to other sports like football and yeah. But the other side of the football team in the city, they play the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even in the winter times.
I don't disagree with the hockey philosophy to take it off ice and do other activities because they need to build different skills too. I don't think that's a bad thing. But we as a sport also have to look at, what do we really need? Because we think we need more ice. We always do. But do we need that? Or do we need something different? Can we get by? But you're right, if the rink's not open, that's harder to do. If you want ice and the rink's not open.
So, but if you will take down the ice on ice in the end of the season, but for our we need to.
Yes, yeah, you're not the
we
only.
need help
Yeah,
from
you're not
the
the
hockey.
only-
We need
yes,
help. That's,
yes.
If they use like
Yes, you're not the only town that's mentioned this. Yeah, it's just about that again, creating partnerships,
just
right?
helping each other to have one rink up and running for the whole
I'm surprised you don't have entrepreneurs. They're like hockey entrepreneurs that want that. That are going to run.
Yeah, maybe I have
skills
to
camps.
arrange it by myself and take it. In football, they have like they call it carver, and it's a senior commercial thing that you can for the winter just technique training.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'm
And you can
surprised
take-
that you don't have that. That is not something that the hockey community's trying. Like people in the hockey community are trying to do.
Because there's some
That's good money making.
in Stockholm and so on. They have the keepers camp and and stuff, but they don't do it here. And I think
Power skating, skill development. So it's not game oriented, but it's more just skill development. Things that they don't learn in practice that they can learn and focus in on. And they're again, blocks of 3 and 4 weeks, etc.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that that's not. People aren't beating the door down to do that.
just a little to help us to have the ice up and running at least one month.
Well, again, give us a call one day and see if we can set something up to come and talk about it.
Yeah.
There's always a solution. Solution to every problem.
Maybe I have to help the hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Club to make something that
Yes,
that's
that entices them.
Time,
Yeah.
ice time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's possible too. Yeah, you got to. Sometimes we got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I did in my own business to create enough ice. Because again, for them to keep the rink open for me in a small town, I had to go. I'll rent this much.
Yeah.
And then now I got to fill this much. But I mean, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh.
Jag vet att de gamla lämnade inte. Men vi måste städa.
Very good, and I think everyone feels inspired.
Oh, good,
So,
good. Thank you.
then, and I think it's important for us as a district, to build on it. Everyone is here.
Absolutely.
It's not often, we get
Yes.
to meet them. It's,
Yes.
So it's good for us to get
Yeah.
to meet the clubs as well, and if they can do something.
Well, I've been surprised by the turnout too. That's good.
Yeah.
You did a good job.
We are very happy.
And I was hoping I'd be done by 8 and have lots of questions.
Yeah, but it's.
I
I think
carried away.
everyone was very engaged and listening.
Yeah, I thought
and
so
they
too.
have told me that they it's very good. So,
Oh.
but so that's the feedback. So,
Fantastic.
but I think we also have a work to do together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think that's.
We can't just ask you to
Yes.
give us the solutions.
Yes.
This is a district where they don't work together. They have good coaches, they don't work together with another club, really, and that's a big problem.
It's a silly problem.
Yes.
Again, I think we went through that more in Canada probably 10 years ago, but coaches like try to help each other as much as possible because it's in the best interest of the business.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Sometimes we think we just think too small.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm happy where I am, I don't care what's happening over there. But again, if everybody's flourishing around you, creates a much better competition. It creates much more. Makes you have to be better as well. If you stifle people's growth, then you don't have to grow either. So it's a terrible philosophy. to
Yes.
carry.
And it's very old-fashioned.
Yeah, it's old-fashioned. It doesn't make any sense. It happens everywhere. Why? Why are we doing this? We hurt ourselves more than help ourselves. Well, thank you so much for your time. I
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you
it.
for coming. It's very good. It wasn't so many coaches here, but we meet them in other places as
There
well.
are some here.
Yeah.
Those ones can go back and spread the word. Evil empires and all right. Thank you.
då stackars orkestern. Men vi skulle ju vara här till klockan 9 så.
Vad ska du göra?
Nej, vi måste ut härifrån här typ. Hon får till en kvart.
Ja, nu har vi kommit överens om att de har gått och vi låser och släcker. De sa att vi inte behövde det.
Det sa han till mig också.
Ja, men nu kör vi den här. Men alltså den här går bara på 3 sekunder, sen så gör ni. Vi får köra flera gånger.
Nej, men det är inga fler koppar.
Okej,
Ja.
då kör vi.
Nej, 3 koppar kvar, de ryms.
Har du stängt av din?
Nej. Man kanske har somnat av sig själv.
Då får vi hoppas att min spelade in filmen.
Ja, den har nog stängt av. Jag vet